When I was 10 years old, something happened to me which was the scariest incident of my life. Because of this is why I will not be staying home alone anymore. It was during the winter and my mom and dad were going to a concert and I didn't want to go because I don't like loud music. So I decided to stay home and keep to myself for a few hours. My parents would be coming home at around 11 p.m. and it was 6 p.m. So I went outside and played some basketball and then eventually went inside to play some video games. While I was playing video games upstairs, I could have sworn I heard the sound of my front door opening. My door has one of those digital locks where you had to enter a password in order to get inside, so I figured that my parents forgot something. I yelled out, "Mom, is that you?" There was no response. Now I was starting to get confused. I put my game on pause and started to walk down the stairs. I then heard some shuffling and things moving around in the kitchen. I walked over to the kitchen to see nothing. However, I looked a bit closer to the pantry closet door, and I could see what looked like a hand wrapped around it. There was someone hiding behind that door. I was too scared to run or even move. I just stayed there looking at the hand. I then finally had the courage to start moving again. I stepped a few feet back very slowly, trying my best not to make any noise or give away my position. I went back upstairs to my bedroom and locked the door and hid in my closet. I didn't have a cell phone at the time and the home phone was downstairs. There was nothing for me to do but wait. I sat in my closet in the dark waiting for what seemed like an hour. I then hear footsteps coming up the stairs really slowly. I hear doors opening and closing, and I knew that he would eventually find my room. I then heard the footsteps stop at my door, and I start crying, but I still tried to not make any noise. Whoever was outside my door started knocking slowly on my door. They then started kicking at my door really hard, trying to break it down. Just when I thought that this would be the end, I hear police sirens at the distance getting louder and louder as more time passed. I heard the man run downstairs and out our back door. 2 officers then entered my room and comforts me while my parents were on their way. It turns out that a couple walking their dog saw someone open our window and get inside, and then they called police. I still have no idea what would have happened to me had police showed up any later. This happened when I was around 9 years old. My parents both worked at different jobs at different times, so I would be home alone for most of the time. Nothing ever really happened when I was home alone. I would basically just play video games and sometimes play with my German Shepherd named Connor. One day, my parents both had to work at the exact same night and almost the same exact times. This doesn't happen very often, but once in a while it does. They told me to feed Connor and finish up my homework. They then left around 8 p.m. and would be back around 6 a.m. to take me to school the next day. Since I had the house to myself for pretty much the whole night, I decided to play some Call of Duty on my Xbox and eat some pizza from last night. Fast forward about an hour into the game, I hear my dog Connor barking at something. He would always bark at whatever he sees or hears, so I figured that it must have been someone walking by our house. I told him to shut up, but he kept on barking. I took off my headphones to realize that the barking was coming from the hallway. I paused my game and went over to see what he was barking at. I turned on the hall light to see Connor standing in front of my parents' bedroom door. A chill ran down my throat. I don't know what he was barking at, but I wanted to find out. I opened the door and saw a man's head peeking out from under my parents' bed. Connor ran and tried to get under the bed, but was unable to. I ran to the phone and called my parents immediately to tell them that there was someone in our house. They then called police and cops showed up in about 3 minutes. One of the officers told me to talk about what happened while the others went into the bedroom to try and find the guy. When they came back out into the hall, they both told me something disturbing. The man had bashed my parents' window open and got away. My parents then arrived soon after, and we moved out of state a few months later. I really hope nothing like this ever happens to me again. When I was 13 years old, I had just started 7th grade. Both my parents worked during the afternoon, so therefore they couldn't pick me up from school, so that meant I had to take the bus. Anyway, there was this one day I encountered something which I'm pretty sure was the most scariest day of my life. It was a Tuesday, and my parents were once again working, so I went on bus. I sat next to my new friend that I had just made. We'll call her Sarah. Sarah was the type of girl who would always put a smile on anyone's face no matter how upset you were, and she would always invite the kids who were sitting alone at lunch to our table. To make it short, she was the nicest girl you would ever meet. Anyway, the bus pulls up to our stop and lets us off. My house was in the opposite direction of Sarah's house, so we both said bye and went on our ways. As I'm approaching my house, I get very confused. I see an old dirty white truck parked in front of my house. I thought that it was a bit strange, but brushed it off thinking that it was someone looking for my parents. I approached my front door and opened it and went upstairs to get started on some homework. When I opened the door to my room, I see a man sitting down on my bed pointing a gun in my direction. I was petrified, unable to move. He then told me to come with him into his truck and told me if I spoke that he won't hesitate to shoot me. I do what he says while tears are running down my cheeks. Meanwhile, he had the gun to me and we both walked down the stairs and into his truck. He said to get in and I obeyed. He then got in and started the truck and we pulled out of the driveway. I didn't know where he was taking me, but I couldn't ask him. Just then, a police car blocked our path. 2 officers came out and told him to get out of the truck. The man, whoever he was arrested and put in jail. Meanwhile, I was crying while the officers comforted me. My parents pulled me out of school for a few days and they switched times so that someone would be home with me. They did this until I was 15 and nothing has happened since.